It is 6 o'clock. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. We're going to call to order our regular board meeting of the Woodford County Board of Education. It's August 26, 2024, and we are here at the Woodford County High School. If everyone, pardon? Oh, yeah. I'm going to do roll call. We have 4 members in person. I know Ms. McCowan is stuck in traffic. She is on her way. She'll be here as soon as possible. So we're going to stand for the pledge. The flag is over in the corner next to the back doors there by the bookshelf. And Reed, if you wouldn't mind to lead us in the pledge. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we move on in the agenda, I did want to make an introduction of Mr. Sayre. Reed Sayre is our 2024-2025 student representative. He's a senior at the high school, and he is a student athlete. He's involved in media arts and all sorts of interesting things. And we're super excited to have you here this year, Reed. It's going to make my last 5 months here on the board even better, so thank you. All right, moving on, are there any proposed amendments to the agenda?
I do have a couple of requests. The first one is to remove the Legends contract from the consent agenda to the regular agenda.
Is there a second? Discussion on that?
Yeah, I just would like to have a discussion about that, about what the liability is, why we would do a waiver, if that's something that happens normally, what are the risks, what are the benefits, and really just, kind of have discussion about if we don't do that, would we maybe move forward with, maybe mulch, just opening and having mulch instead of a sidewalk, just those kinds of things.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I wanted to ask for that to be removed too, just because within those contracts it said that it was a waiver of liability, and I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that before with a contract. So I thought it would be good to discuss as a board. Just like I said, I've not seen it, and it seems important.
So this is something that's already been passed. The Legends sidewalk has been passed. This is just to approve the contracts. I would say to ask Mr. Morgan, is there anything out of the ordinary that we would have never seen in another contract to do any building improvement in this set of contracts?
Sorry, Mike. I haven't reviewed the contract. I haven't been asked to review the contract. If I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
It's a waiver because of the 811. So when 811 came out to do the, call before you dig, they identified some lines, some telephone, and was it internet?
They had already been identified prior to the
Okay.
being approved.
So those lines have been identified, and based on that, the contractor is requesting a waiver of liability, so that if those lines are disturbed, it's not his responsibility. So I just, as a board, would like to know, have we done that before, issued waivers to people because of, digging?
So if it's a waiver of liability only for the digging around the telephone lines, I was thinking total waiver of liability. I would never, advise that. If it's just for damage to the lines, right, then I'd want to look at the specific language, but that's not as significant a risk, right? I mean, you're basically looking at, one, repair of the lines, or two, if they just cause an outage. But I think that's one that you could probably work with the contractor to mitigate.
I'm just
So-
afraid if we approve that tonight, then that would be the final done deal without having any discussion, without knowing, if you've looked at the contract, if the language is good. I just don't want to get a situation where we sign a waiver, which to me, I haven't seen that either.
So I would suggest that we then table this and move it to the next consent agenda to give Mr. Morgan a chance to review, and he can respond to us with any concerns or any reassurance that this is in fact a normal contract that we would see under any other construction project.
Just so if we table this for another month, that means there's a month delay in this project getting started, but we already approved the project, and I know a lot of people are waiting on it to get started. And when we're just talking about, you know, the potential of him hitting like an internet line, which 811 already marked it, and he was, it looks like from what I read in that liability waiver, he already did some testing himself and dug in certain areas, and it's already been marked.
He's done some hand dug
Right,
holes.
he's already
Yeah.
done that. This just looks like the contractor in this specific situation just wanting to cover himself a little bit on, again, something that probably isn't going to be an issue. So I would hate to delay this project another month or even longer, because if we wait till next month to even talk about this piece, then it's, you know, longer that we have to wait to get it done when we've already approved it anyway. So this waiver wouldn't stop the project because we've already approved the project.
Correct.
But if
So
you
I
didn't
just-
approve the waiver, I'm just saying if, and I'm not saying that I don't want to, but I'm saying if we did not approve the waiver, then it would have to go out for another bid, I guess, and find another contractor that would do it.
And
like
just a
this-
reminder, we're getting into weather as well. We will eventually,
Right.
within a
but-
month or two, get into weather.
Yeah. But
So-
does what I said make sense, though? Like, if we didn't approve it, if it was in the contracts and we as a board did not approve it, we would have to,
And then that
Step back and
contract,
do
if that
something
contractor
else.
backed
Yes.
out, then
Okay.
we'd have to start the whole process.
Right.
Just
Right.
because of this, you know, worry from the contractor about covering themselves from an internet line.
Yeah.
So
I
don't
think
know.
it's a minimal risk. I'm willing to leave it in the agenda as it is, vote on it, and approve it as it is, personally. So if there's no other discussion, we'll vote on that being moved from the consent agenda. All those in favor?
I,
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Okay, the motion fails 3-2. Any other proposed amendments to the agenda? So just so we're clear on what that meant, the item stays in the consent agenda for approval as part of the consent agenda tonight. It is not postponed. It is not changed in any manner. It is as presented. Okay?
right, and not removing it from the consent agenda means that if you disagree or vote against anything else in the consent agenda, it's like you're voting against that, which is not the case for me.
Correct, but that's what a consent agenda is. So moving on, any other motions to, any other proposed amendments to the agenda?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the treasurer's report out of the consent agenda.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
The same as it always has been. I think it's important for us to discuss where we stand in terms of revenue and expenditures, if we're on track, if we need to take a step back and do things differently. So that's my position.
And I would just add, in light of the fact that we haven't reviewed this report monthly, openly in a meeting where there can be discussion and board members can have questions and shared understanding and come to a conclusion about the state of the finances, that concerns me. But it also concerns me that we ended the fiscal year almost $3 million with our expenses exceeding our revenues, and we have yet to discuss that. When we also are looking at doing a tax vote. So I think that's something that's really vital and important to discuss prior to asking the public for more money, more money, more money. We're not going to discuss how we're spending your money. We're not going to acknowledge that there's a $2.9 million, deficit of our expenses over our revenue, and, refusing to even discuss that, I think is really a dereliction of our duty.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think
Mr.
the
Pepper?
fact that we are talking about the tax rate tonight is going to be the appropriate time to review those numbers, to talk about that. So to me, we're going to talk about that tonight as part of the tax issue. So I don't see a reason to pull this back in just for that.
And again, as every month, all information has been made available to every single board member, to the public. We have all had opportunity to review and ask questions. I know at least 4 of us actually sat down with Mr. Smith in person to review. So we are not keeping information from anyone. All the information is there and ready for review, and we would expect and hope that members come to our meeting with their questions answered. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion fails 3-2. Any other proposed amendments to the agenda?
I would just ask that maybe in the future, if we're talking about making the treasurer's report available to people, they can see it for themselves, that it's not a 78-page Munis report, because nobody understands that. So if the CFO would provide a summary, maybe some slides of expenses, revenue, some of the highlights, that would be more user-friendly. But to say that, you know, it's out there and available for anybody, I don't think anybody could understand it unless you have a background in school finance.
So I think you can broach Mr. Smith on that subject at any point
Okay.
to ask him. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's reports. We have superintendent's report. We have our recognitions today. And tonight we are recognizing our state track achievements. So how do you want to do this, Ms. Bailey?
Yes, okay, we have many, can you hear me? Hello? We have many state champions present tonight and students who just had impressive showings at the state competition for track. So I feel that it is a small enough number of students that we could actually, if the board would like to stand in front of the table, and then they can shake hands, hang out here till everyone is called, and then we can take our group photo. One thing I do want to note is please be careful, students, as you walk up, not to trip on any cords. And as I call your name, we'll again just have you walk up to my left here. You'll shake the board's hand, get your certificate, hang out on the right here, and then we'll take a group photo, okay? Okay. First, we are recognizing Demetrius Polk and Samuel Garrison for the Unified Shot Put Class 3A state champions. Demetrius doesn't have to go far because we're also recognizing him and Zach Meckley for the Unified 2x200 Class 3A state champions and the Unified 2x50 Class 3A state runner-up. Yes, so we'll have you hang out right there, Demetrius. Next is Olivia Dabney. She is recognized as the Class 3A Discus State Runner-Up. We next have Jackson Gray, who was the Class 3A Pole Vault State Runner-Up. And Chase Thurman. He was the Turbo Javelin State Record.
Okay, moving on to our superintendent remarks.
Yeah, I want to welcome everybody here. It's good to see everybody for our August board meeting. That's the first meeting of our new school year. We've had a great start to the year. It's awesome to see our students back in the classroom, seeing them enjoying our extracurricular activities. Just to mention our enrollment's up about 130 students from last year. So at this time, so that's always a positive. That says that folks want to be here. Parents want their kids to be here. So that's always a plus. I want to congratulate Miss Tracy Francis on winning the 2024 Grissom Award for Innovation in Special Education, a very special highlight at the Kentucky Board of Education a couple weeks ago over here in Frankfort, where she was recognized along with some of the other folks that were involved in the project. But it probably a 30-minute feature during the Kentucky Board of Education meeting. So congratulations, Miss Francis. Both boys and girls soccer teams have kicked off a great season. If I'm not mistaken, the girls are undefeated, I think. And just actually they play tonight. I think they have Simon Kenton over at the community stadium. If we get done in time, kind of go over and check them out because they're fun to watch. Girls soccer is a lot of fun to watch. It's almost as if they're maybe a little more physical than the boys. They really get after the soccer ball, so they're fun to watch. Football season opened up Saturday with our high school over in Mercer County. We played Taylor County and had a really good win. I think they kicked the ball to Leland Taylor twice, and Leland Taylor ran it back twice. That may be the first time I've ever seen that. Now, Leland does have a special history of running that football back, so pay attention to him this year because he does have some wheels. But it was fun to watch, good game. Weather was nice, and that was the bowl where they kind of honor Coach Johnson's father over there in Harrodsburg and Mercer County. Big deal over there. Big deal to us, too. I would like to say that we have made a large investment in our students and our staff and the infrastructure here over the last 3 years in Woodford County. Again, we see 130 new students, and it's a place people want to be. So it's a good time to be a Yellow Jacket. And I will close by saying it's great to see our kids back in school, see our staff working hard. I've been in every school every week, and it's great to see the good things going on in Woodford County. So ask the staff to keep up the great work, and we're just excited to be back in school.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. We'll move on to our good news report. And I'm going to put Mr. Sarah on the spot for his first meeting and have him go first.
Good evening, everybody. To kind of piggyback off what Mr. Atkins said, the fall sports have been great so far. We're all really excited for our first home football game this Friday. You guys should all check it out tonight or Friday night. And then also, I can speak for everybody in the building. We are very eager and excited to get into the new school in a couple months. It gets more intense every single day. We're all very, very excited to get back in there. Hopefully it is everything that we hope for. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCowan?
I don't have a whole lot except just that I'm excited to see that the back-to-school events have all gone well. It looks like all of the students are happy to be back. Teachers and staff are happy to be back. Things are running smoothly, so I would just say welcome back Woodford County to school, and I hope everybody has a wonderful year.
Thank you. Ms. Glass?
I just wanted to share and congratulate Woodford County High School junior Preston Graham, who has been selected as the non-voting student member of the Kentucky Board of Education. He's been featured on social media and in the media just in the last few weeks since they had their meeting. It was exciting to get our Kentucky School Board Association magazine in the mail, and his picture and quote were in there. So that's really neat and an awesome representation of Woodford County. So just wanted to congratulate Preston.
I will say the new commissioner says that Preston will not stop talking about how great Woodford County is and his educational experience has been. So that's always a plus when our kids are talking good about us.
Absolutely. In addition, I wanted just to highlight, I think there were actually too many awards to even count or talk about tonight, but our FFA organization did very, very well at the state fair this year. So if you see anybody involved in FFA, congratulate them. There is a lot of hard work that takes a very long time to go into a lot of their projects, and we're really proud of them in addition to everything else that they're doing every day. Glad to see the school year got off on a good note, too. And then I just wanted to call out one thing in our consent agenda tonight is some donations. So every month we approve the donations in the consent agenda. Hopefully everybody saw that there was a grand piano that was donated to the high school by Ms. Karen Call. So just a really big thank you to her for thinking of our students and being able to donate such a beautiful instrument for our kids to enjoy in the new high school. Mr. Brickler?
Yeah. So recently, the Distinguished Young Women's Scholarship event was held, and I just wanted to recognize the 10 Woodford County students that participated in that. We had Lindy Daly, who won Woodford County Distinguished Young Woman. We have Jordan Evans, who was the first runner-up. Bethany Klein, who was second runner-up. And then we also had Sophie Paul, Alyssa Kemper, Isa Gonzalez, Isabella Simpson, Lainey Preston, Lenora Hanley, and Kara Springate. And they raised around $17,000 in scholarship money, and every single one of those participants received some portion of the scholarship money. So for anyone thinking about that or has heard about it, definitely encourage you to participate in that. They even have opportunities for younger students where they're freshmen or sophomore to be little sisters, or I think it's K through 6th grade that can be itty bitties, and so just to get a little bit of exposure there. So it's a great program, and definitely encourage anyone to participate in that.
I love that you're a girl dad, too.
Yep, it shows,
So
doesn't it?
it
Yeah.
adds a lot of depth to our group here. So, Ms. Springate?
I would just echo that it's been really, really nice to have the students back in school. I'm sure the parents, grandparents, caretakers are thrilled. So hopefully we'll have a really, really good year. The only thing I would say is that I was able to attend an Amendment 2 training earlier this month, and I hope that everybody is able to get out and just find out that that's going to be the constitutional amendment on the ballot that really affects public schools. So hopefully everybody can kind of just become educated and vote the right way on that.
So
Thank
I
you.
was actually going to mention that at the end of the meeting. We're going to add that as a discussion item at the next board meeting. Mr. Morgan's going to walk through sort of topically what that means. Mr. Adkins is actually attending the Superintendent's Association meeting. It's this coming next week, right? The 5th. And that one of the sole focuses there is Amendment 2, so we'll have a chance to discuss and ask questions as a board, and then we can bring better information to the public as well. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, moving on, our new high school project update. Mr. Ratliff.
Good evening. We've had a lot of progress the past 30 days. I'm sure everybody driving by the building can see the drastic changes happening. Dry weather's been couldn't have had a better time for dry weather and the weather we've had, and if we can continue that on into October, we'll be in really good shape. So the concrete curb and stuff will start tomorrow at the front of the building, and then asphalt to follow. So in the next week or so, all those parking lots you're going to see black. So topsoil will follow, and landscaping. We're waiting on landscaping for the heat to be over, but that'll start in late September and go into October, and it'll continue to change fast out there. So as far as financials, the only thing that has changed on this sheet is the total construction build. That's $50,685,485.07. That's 83%. Substantial completion remains at November 26, 2024, with final completion December 26, 24. Contingency log remains the same. 74% remaining, $2,236,700.83. Building sequence as always. In the past 30 days in area C and E, doors and hardware have achieved 95%. Other than finishes about to start in there, like visual display boards, that area is kind of stagnant, and the focus is in all other areas, but there will be visual displays and folding panel partitions going in this month. Area F, laboratory casework's at 10%, flooring's at 55%, and final paint's at 80%. Area D, hydronic piping's complete, exterior door fronts at 65%, tile is at 90%, and ceiling grid is at 90%. Area A, light fixtures at 80%, electrical rough-in at 95%, and duct is at 80%. Area B, electrical rough-in 95%, and duct insulation at 70%. Site, cooling tower and vaults are at 100%. Stone base at the bus drop-off and visitor parking is 100%, and final grading and topsoil placement is at 25%. Items we plan to complete in the next 30 days. Area C, like I said, the mirrors, visual displays, signs, and wall protection. Install the folding panel partition and start up permanent HVAC systems. Both same items for Area C and E. By the end of this week, we will have permanent systems up and running, cooling the building for now. So that's a great achievement and a good milestone. For production, for finishes, and you get rid of a lot of the temp conditioning and everything, so that's a big milestone to hit. Area F, flooring, interior storefront and final paint. Area D, exterior storefront doors, tile, and ceiling grid. Area A, electrical rough-in, gymnasium equipment, and the gym wood flooring. Area B, first and second floor electrical rough-in, fire protection rough-in, and duct. And site, the remaining curb and gutter and asphalt base. There is a side-by-side comparison from July to August. Huge difference in the exterior of the building, so it's taking shape quick. There's an east view. Mostly you'll see just topsoil placements advancing around the building. And they're working their way around to that back portion between C-wing and E-wing. There's really not a lot in there, so that's kind of the last priority, but topsoil placement will be finished before landscaping starts. You can see they've already made their way around the west side. They're finalizing that canopy, the metal panel and the canopy in that area, and should be finished with that tomorrow, I believe. There's just another angle, couple angles, show you the front area. There's just a side aerial, another angle from month-to-month comparison. Area F, there's the first floor corridor. The flooring is already installed in most of those classrooms down through there, and they'll be coming, they'll start in the media center and work their way up through there. Flooring will probably start Monday of next week in the media center, and they'll start working their way up towards the admin area. And then flooring and casework is installed in the sign slab. Of course, the flooring's protected, so you can't see it, but that's what's under the paper. Area D, the elevator's now installed. As you can see, the cafeteria now has ceiling grid throughout it. And then if you look closely at the admin, you can see the LVT coming out of the doorways, and today they actually started putting flooring down in that corridor we're looking at there. Shot of the auditorium. They've been the sheetrock, the overhead soffits you're looking at there. Sheetrock has been placed, and they're finishing that as we speak. And so, probably next week, they'll start painting that area in preparation. The auditorium seating is scheduled for October 1st. So, gym floors September 9th, and the auditorium's October 1st. So all the overhead work, there's a big push to get all that done before that stuff comes in. And then the entrance commons, that's the entrance from the student and faculty parking. all the overhead MEPs are complete, and the soffit is, they'll start hanging sheetrock on there in the next couple weeks. Big difference in the gym. You've got some color now. So that yellow duck sock stands out. Looks really good in my opinion. And that's it for that. Track and field. The only update to that is the construction cost billed to date. That's $3,104,596.11. That's 85% complete. As far the next item is dealing with the concession restroom and the bid results, and that will determine what we do there. Will determine the finish date of the track and field. Contingency remains the same, little over 44% remaining, $303,274.89. Past 30 days, they established subgrade for concession restroom and bleachers, installed track rubber surfacing, and we bid the concession restrooms, athletic lighting, and bleacher concrete. 30-day look ahead, complete long jump and pole vault, and place track striping. There is a slimmed down version of the schedule. Still tracking, I think the substantial completion is, November 20th. So still 6 days ahead. There are manpower. We've had to have some conversations with the electrical contractor, and just, you get to the end, everybody just thinks it's over, but there's nothing going on that I don't think can be corrected. But it's a constant battle just with all these school projects going on, keeping the right manpower on the job to finish it up. But all good things, and they're moving along quickly. So.
It is so beautiful. I cannot wait to get our kids in there.
I love when the exterior, when it starts looking like it does now, you can really start seeing it, I mean, let's be honest, it just looks like a bomb went off until now, because all the rock removal, there's no way to do it in a pretty fashion. But it is a mood booster when you go by there now.
It sure is.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments for Mr. Ratliff? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. And girl dads are the best.
Okay, moving on to item E. Can I have a motion to approve the new high school project concession stand and restroom bid?
So moved.
That's a motion by Ms. McCowan
Second.
and a second by Mr. Brickler. Have at it, Mr. Smith.
Okay, as Clay referenced, we put that out for bid and opened the bids last Tuesday. We had 3 responses. You've seen the bid recommendation from Trace Creek as well as RTA. Olympic Construction has the lowest bid overall with all 3 alternates. And just to reference, the base bid is the restroom and concession stand. The alternate one is owner preferred door hardware, which is at no cost on all of the bids. Alternate 2 is the lighting, the light poles and all the bases. So that gets us everything lit that needs to be involved with having that area lit up. And then alternate 3 is the concrete pad for a 500 seat bleacher as of right now. So the low bid for all of the alternates and the base was $1,458,000 with a 5% contingency that would be required to be added to that. That would put that project at $1,530,900. Outside of the bid, before you bid on that or vote on that, we have priced the bleachers. So the bleachers and the installation over and above that, which we can do through the state pricing contracts and all the things that we have the mechanisms to do. The bleachers would be about $183,000 on top of that, so a total project cost of $1,714,504. Um,
Can you say that again? What exactly what with the bleachers?
Yeah, so the bid that we're referencing is for the bleacher pad, the concrete that it would sit on. And so to buy the bleachers and have it installed on top of the pad adds another $183,604. So the total between the bid that you're going to be voting on and the bleachers, if we're able to add those, would be $1,714,504. And as Clay referenced, the contingencies available between both projects, we have approximately $2,536,700 available in the contingency to be available to do this if you vote to do so.
What was that total amount? I'm sorry, that you said the total between both projects?
Yeah, we have approximately $2,536,700.
Do we have any, I know we don't have a crystal ball, but, I mean, would there be typically expenses that would need to eat into that contingency more towards the end of the project? Is it safe to go ahead and start spending that contingency now? How does that work?
Yeah, so Mr. Ratliff and I, Mr. Hughes and I, Mr. Atkins and I, we've all had some pretty heavy discussions, and I am pretty confident that, unless something were to be completely unforeseen occurred, I think we're at a safe spot on the contingency. With that number, we essentially have everything that we have to provide, owner provided equipment that we have to buy over and above the construction. I think I'm confident that we have all this accounted for, and that number is a good number.
And that would still, even with, and obviously we don't have the exact dollars, but that would still leave us about 700,000 in
Yep.
contingency after
Yes.
that cost. Okay.
Yes.
Other questions or comments? I think we've done a really good job managing the contingency so far, so thank you to Trace Creek and to you, Mr. Smith, on doing that. And I think it's a great spot that we've landed ourselves in, that we can now give our kids this full complement of athletic facility when we open the high school.
It's a big hats off to Trace Creek for managing the project the way they have. You'll see projects a lot of times eat contingency up in the first 6 months. They've done a really good job with that. This bid to do everything would allow us to host our track meets. Just things that our students have never had available to them before. Would give them opportunities to raise funds, things that, again, have never been available to Woodford County students. So that would be my recommendation for sure.
And the way that this was written, it was for all three options, right? All the alts?
I think so.
The base bid plus the alts is what we're voting on right now. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the Perkins stipend increase?
So moved.
It's a motion by Ms. Glass
Second.
and a second by Ms. McCowan.
Mr. Reed's here to discuss that. This was at his request, and I'm just going to let him talk about it. This doesn't come out of general fund, doesn't come from any funds other than the Perkins grant. So, Mr. Reed, I'll let you go ahead with your reasoning.
Yes, so Perkins is the federal guidelines that lead our career and tech education program. We receive those federal funds through the metrics that we put forward as a school. The requirements on this position have always been data entry for those Perkins metrics, budgeting, annual grant writing, annual budget reconciliation, and then training for the Perkins grant and GMAP in general. Over the past couple years, when the iteration of Perkins 5, those kind of requirements expanded, and now there is increased grant requirements, which include working with students and community partners for accountability metrics, middle grade requirements, and equity and demographic requirements that need to be accounted for and put into that grant. Being a comprehensive high school too, we also have supervision requirements for our advisory board meetings and collaborations with the Bluegrass area cohort, which is all surrounding counties. We know as a school, CTE growth is one of the areas that we are focused on. I'm really excited to share our kind of accountability metrics over the next few months, but post-secondary readiness is something that we are going to be a big rock of ours and something we need to focus on. We've taken steps in the last couple years to really invest in our engineering program. I'm excited for a group of students to kind of share what they're doing with you here in a few. We've added an agriculture teacher. We've added a media arts pathway. And had the opportunity to work with Mr. Asher and some community partners to hopefully expand some opportunities and more pathways in the future that we can hopefully share with you and get your approval on in the coming months. But all that said is it really increased the workload on our grant coordinator. And as Mr. Atkins said, the money that goes to this stipend completely comes out of the Perkins budget. It's at no cost to the district outside of that. And as we continue to expand those pathways, hopefully that grant will continue to grow as well. So any questions kind of regarding that stipend increase?
Any questions? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Reed. Okay, now we come to what will be certainly the most interesting and fun part of our meeting tonight, which is our high school robotics demonstration.
If you'll recall, we've had some conversations about some great steals we've made, and I'll say Miss Crabtree has been one of those. We've been very blessed to have her here, and if you followed me on social media whatsoever, you'll see that we've congratulated this team and her on quite a bit of work this summer and success they've had. So we're excited to see their demonstration today.
Okay. Fellas, make sure you introduce yourself before we start.
Okay. Hi, my name is Logan Rudd. I'm a junior here at Woodford County High School, and today we are here just kind of, as you all said, talk about our 2-week experience at Morehead State University participating in Robot Gladiator League.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Ben Bush. I'm a junior, and I was the weapon systems controller for our robot.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Owen Border. I'm a sophomore here, and I was responsible for driving the robot during the competition.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Our first slide is a picture on day one whenever we got to the Morehead State University. There's a bunch of photos that happened. We followed along by watching a movie and kind of gave us some inspiration in building this robot. The second design is whenever we started designing the robot, and we were actually given a kind of sort of like Legos. You were required to build a robot base, and then off of the base you were able to change it and then add to it your battle system.
So this was us looking at our parts for the robot, and we actually got pretty close with some of the leaders that they gave us. Like, we'd ask them questions, and we got to work on the frame. As you see, we started off with metal, and we would just connect them together. And we were, in this one, we were lining them up and getting them in the right order to then connect them together. And they were connected through 3D printed pieces that you would put a screw and then a nut through to where it would connect. And then we actually got to connect the motors to the bits while we were putting the frame together. And then this is the underside of it, the base, where we put our electrical components on, and we have our spot for the air tank in the green. And then I'll let you do that.
In this picture, it was, I'm pretty sure, me attaching the motor onto a gear that would then turn the wheel. This is the inside of the robot. There's tons of stuff. You can see on the left, there's the air compressor. And then on the right, as Ben was saying, there's the green part, which had the, the air tank. This part was when I was learning how to do the drill press. We're drilling holes inside the top because the holes do not match up to the rest of the body, which was annoying. This is more of me learning how to use a drill press. That's me watching Logan do the drill press. I'm not exactly sure what he's doing in that.
You could probably literally say anything and we would believe you.
Yeah.
So.
I don't like this photo, but we were discussing about either a challenge that we're doing for the robot camp thing. This was us reading the rules. The guy on the right, he's not on our team, but he's fun. Forgot what that machine's called. What? Drop saw. That's a drop saw. I can use it. That's Ben welding, and then Logan, I guess, supervising him.
Cool.
Who did the welding?
Mostly Logan. I hurt myself, so I couldn't do it. That is Logan welding. He welded most of the time. Those are Logan's
Pretty
welds.
nice welds. Yeah.
Gosh. This part was annoying, but we had to file down some parts because I think he plasma cut something or used like a grinder or something. It was really rigid, well, jagged, I think is the word, and it wouldn't fit in with the rest of the components. Why'd she add that photo? This is Ben using the drill press, Logan using, dude, I don't know what that was, chop saw, and then that was part of our body that connects the back of our armor over there to the front ramp, but I think that's Logan plasma cutting something. Why is that welding? That was welding, I guess. Welding again. That's the picture that you just saw of that little guy standing up. That was him welding it. Guys, I think my turn's over. Someone else can go. Oh wait, actually I'll do this last one. That's me making the kill switch armor. As you can see, one of my hands is wrapped up. That's after I hurt myself. So I couldn't do a lot. So I had to do parts that didn't involve machinery. But yeah. All right, my turn's over.
Okay, so here's a picture of our framework on our robot. The robot weighed so much that just the frame alone didn't have enough counterweight to be able for it to drive, and the mobility was just horrible on it. So we added a set of rollers on it to kind of counterbalance that weight and be able to, for Owen to drive it better. Here's a few pictures of Owen using the grinder. He fabricated the metal casing on the back to protect the kill switch and just fabricated that. Here's a picture of me grinding a piece on the ramp in the front. 16th inch steel, and it was very, very tough. Here's a picture of our design of the front. We started off, it's not the same design as you all see up there. We had two bearings powered, and a rod going through those bearings powered by a little brushless motor, which would then create a floor spinner. And then we added the ramp as extra defense for our robot, so then we could execute in the ring. Here's another picture of the floor spinner after the blade got put on it and the motor was attached, and before we put the ramps on it. What is it? Yeah. This is kind of like our revised version of it. We had to give the actual frame back to the Newton Attic people, and this was kind of all that we fabricated and made while at the camp.
You guys used a lot of different tools on this. Was this the first time that you guys got to use a lot of these tools? So this was like first time learning how to do all that? That's amazing. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Okay, here's a picture of Ben plasma cutting. I'll let him talk a little bit more about that and that experience.
So this was actually my first time plasma cutting, and I didn't really know what I was doing, but it's kind of like reverse welding. So instead of building material in, you're kind of just blowing it out with a really hot torch, and it's kind of fun to destroy stuff. This is us trying to figure out how to get our mower blade to not hit the ground, because how it would lean forward because it was heavy, it would keep hitting, so we had to change that up a lot. And this was our box we put on the top. It was to protect the motor and all of our electrical components that connected that, and it went on the front, but we ended up taking it off because it was way too heavy. So this was our first practice day, I think, and it was after our first match, and we ended up just taking a bunch of metal off so we could actually move. I believe that was me, and I was welding the spine on just so there could be more support for the back bit connecting to the front. And this was Owen. We were cleaning up the box, and we ended up putting a smiley face on it. It should be there still. Yeah. Yeah. This was Jackson. He actually worked pretty close with us with our robot during the process of making it. And right here, he was just teaching us how to connect the controller and what the weapon systems were and driving and the controls. And we had to take our lid off a lot and put it back on. This is just us making an adjustment to it and having it off. This was the more in-depth part. So this is where we had our belt and how it would connect to the motor. And there would be a bigger pulley and a smaller pulley, and the engine would move one, and then the belt would get the other one to move, so the blade would move. That was just this contraption. And right here, I was using a torch so we could bend the mower blade up. So we heat it up and then tilt it, and then it wouldn't hit the ground as much. And then this is us fitting on the metal box onto the front of the robot. And then our team name was the Swarm because we're Yellow Jackets. And then our other school that we worked with, they were something related to birds. So we just went with the Swarm. Sounded cool. We were Sting Loaded, and then our other teammates were they were the Stinger because they were on offense and we were on defense. And this is our final robot. It was pretty heavy. It was 87 pounds. I think the limit was 80. This is like 82 or something. So we were over it, and we had to carry it. We had to carry it in and out of the arena, and it was just heavy. So we just took off the spine bit, and then we took that box off at the end. So this is us realizing it was too heavy, and we were taking the metal off at this point. And so after our second match, we realized that we didn't have any offense, and we were just a ramp. But we realized we needed to do something because our teammates' robot, they weren't, like, they'd get out of the game really quick. So we had to get some offense. So that's why we kind of got those pointy things on ours, so we could hit the pins and score. We did that like between matches during like 30-minute time frames. So we were scrambling on that. And then that was us actually in the arena. There's a pit in the middle, and then there's 3 pins, one behind us, and then 2 to the right of that robot. And then over there is Spike. Spike had a front spinning blade, and that actually caused some carnage and flipped some lids up and like just destroyed people's stuff. And it was pretty cool to watch. And this is us making modifications mid-game because stuff breaks and you gotta repair it. See, our spine is no longer there in this image, so we ended up taking that off.
Go! Big hit by Spike on Stinger right off the bat. Sting loaded appears to be playing defense, waiting for Mike. Sting! The abyss. It appears that the main defensive box on Junkyard Dogs has been disabled. It's taken out of commission, that's for sure. He's not going to be getting any pins. Sting loaded has broken a post. I can't score. Okay, go get Spike. Go get Spike. Defense around these posts. That's the first time I personally have ever seen that happen. That doesn't count as a point, but it's still pretty cool to see. 15 seconds remain. Will there be any more points to score? Game is over in 10, 9, points scored. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That is
Okay, so as shown in the video, we won the championship and we actually had a very great time. Owen, a phenomenal driver, he first off pushed their offensive robot into the pit, making them basically useless to the match. The objective of the game was to knock over all 3 bowling pins, and our little rod on the front, actually, we during that 10-minute halftime, we added that on to be able to score pins and make our robot sort of an offensive and defensive robot, and ended up not working, but we actually figured out a lot of things. We broke a lot of the rules while we were there, not necessarily in a bad way, but just kind of a learning curve. For example, as in the video, he said, we've never seen that happen whenever Owen actually knocked over the pins to prevent you from getting too close to those bowling pins. And it was just a lot of great fun. After we won the championship, as shown in the video, or that picture, is Owen, Ben, and I standing with our rings and our other partners at the campus. And we won these really cool rings, and there's some more pictures of the rings.
So how long of a process was this?
So the first week we kind of just got, we used a lot of the engineering outline and where we made the prototypes and kind of learned about the pneumatic cylinders and motors and how the robot functioned. On our robot, we had to use a lot of problem solving as some of the components weren't matching up like other people's were. And the second week was whenever we started really developing the battle systems, and we started using more metal fabrication. As first it was more cardboard and wood.
So this is over the course of just a couple of weeks that you
Just 2 weeks.
thought this up and executed and won the championship.
Yes, ma'am.
It's pretty awesome. And like Mr. Brickler said, I think some of the skills that you learned, these are pretty high demand skills. And if you continue to work on those, you're going to leave high school with some pretty fantastic skills. And thank you, Ms. Crabtree, for supporting this super fun activity. Does anybody else have any questions or comments for these young men?
I was just going to say, I think the fact that you guys can weld, you can problem solve, you can program your controllers and drive them, I mean, that you'll have no problem if that's what you want to do in life, getting a job as soon as you graduate, probably the day you graduate. But also, I feel really bad for Owen's parents getting that phone call like, we've had a little accident here at camp, and I can just imagine how they must have felt. But I'm glad you're okay, and it sounds like it was a memory that will stay with you for a lot of time.
I mean, it was fine. I only got like 3 second-degree burns on my hand.
Oh. So the biggest lesson was wear heat-proof gloves, some kind of gloves.
I was wearing.
Oh.
But I was wearing.
You got the ring.
Yeah, I was wearing a glove on this hand, and then it got too hot, so I played hot potato with the other hand. So.
Owen, can you still
Life
play
lessons.
Can you still play the piano?
Yeah.
Congrats, guys. That's really
Well done.
amazing.
Thank you all so much for sharing. It's incredible.
The designing phase, the fabrication phase, the welding, the grinding, all those things. There are companies here in Central Kentucky right now that would put you to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
The skills that you have, surely they're going to take you and polish you up on those, but they would put you to work tomorrow. They see the work that you can do, the entrepreneurial spirit, and again, that ability to fabricate. Just, you've done well, guys. Very proud of you. Very proud of Ms. Crabtree, too. This is what we aspire to see in our students, so thank you.
Board, I would like to invite you to come look at this awesome thing and also recognize that this is one of the grants that you all approved early last year to allow them to go spend 2 weeks for free at this camp, and Ms. Crabtree as well to join them. So please come look at this real quick.
Adam, pick it up. Over your head. You guys need to work on that cart. Fix that cart. Okay, thank you again for that fantastic presentation. And I'd like to call Mr. Asher for our instructional equity report.
Thank you. Good evening once again. Day 13 of instruction as we start the count up. Yet another month where we hear from the students where they are exemplifying that portrait of a learner. So obviously you saw the learner, the collaboration, the contribution, problem solving, so on and so forth. So it's just really interesting to watch how it's coming to life month after month with specific student activities that they're involved in. I didn't plan for this, but Mr. Reed had mentioned some community connections that we're doing. And I want to go ahead and give you a heads up because we hope to have it to you for next month's board meeting, is our fire science pathway. We've been meeting with Chief Rankin back since the spring and have had ongoing meetings. What it will involve is a collaboration with them, with the City Versailles Fire Department, to offer that pathway here in Woodford. We've had several students over the past couple years. I think we just have one right now that is taking it over in Fayette County, but Chief Rankin came to us, said this is just like many professions, it's a need as far as workforce development, and would we be interested in partnering? And we absolutely are. So excited about that opportunity, and again, hope to bring you some more specifics next month. Let me get into what my main point was today, is to cover summer school, summer learning, and our programs that we had over the summer. Here you see several pictures from the elementary level. Cinderella's on there. We'll get to that a little bit because of one of their trips they took to the castle down the road with a special guest appearance from her. Here's our staff. We're probably 4 years at least, and when we've gone with a hub for our elementary program. So we have teachers from all across the district, all 4 elementaries and beyond, because also the Pearson tutors are part of this team that you see here and have done a wonderful collaborative job over the summer. Here's a quick rundown. I won't go through all these numbers. I can get this to you to follow up later if you'd like. But just our overall attendance in June, 174 students, and a slight decrease in July, which we often expect, down to 165. But when I take those numbers, or take that number, and divide it by the total population that is available, because we send kindergarten going to first to second, second to third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth, that's just over 10% of that population. So we are servicing over 10% of our elementary school population in our summer program. You'll see the cost breakdown there. And as total cost down there, notice that it is board allocated a budget for summer school many years ago. We're probably, I'd say, 10 years in on this. But we have to split that just due to the break of the fiscal year. So some comes from the June budget, some comes from the July for the total cost you see there. Here's a rundown of the daily schedule. It is very comprehensive in what they do, not just intervention as a term you often hear, but many other things involved, including social emotional, including PE. Xavi Munez from at Southside is a big partner in this and has a great time with the kids as far as PE goes. A quick rundown of the curriculums that were used, and obviously breakfast and lunch offered for all students. This was our second year of this partnership. You've signed the agreements for the past couple of years. They're very happy with us, and we're very happy with them. In due time here, in the next couple of months, it actually has been part of a research project where Lana is her name. Will hopefully come and present to you what we've seen over time, because you can't expect to fix or to make huge gains over the course of the summer. It's a longer effort where it goes from one school year into a summer, into the next school into a summer to eventually make gains. And they've been doing a research study over time to look for the best approach in order to make up those gaps over time. So again, a very good partnership. We hope that it will be able to be renewed. It was from KDE in partnership with Pearson, and we'll see if we can't get that again for next summer. When we initially met with them, I said we got a good thing going with our summer program, and that's what they wanted to hear. They wanted a base to work off of and just help us expand, and it's done exactly that. Here were the enrichment days mentioned. So as part of this, we of course want the kids to have some fun on a couple of days. They did a bounce day in June, and then the castle day there in July. And Miss Bailey went over and took some great pics of the kids having fun that day. Middle school. Middle school, you'll see less students, and that is a good thing because they bring students back that have failed classes, and that's why I said recover credits, because they're not actually earning credit in middle school when you think high school credit, but they are making up failed grades. So fewer students means fewer teachers, less cost, but a lot of the same components are involved when consider the meals, the extra support, and they do theirs actually through Edgenuity with teacher live instruction to go along with that. And then high school, more students here. Again, much like middle school, but actual credit recovery is the goal of high school summer learning. And I highlighted their total of 98 credits recovered. So that's a lot of ground made up in really just a few weeks' time. Kudos to Dr. S and her staff for recovering a lot of credit and getting kids back on track over the course of the summer. I think that's it. I'll pause there. I've got a couple other things, but pause there if you have any questions about our summer learning programs.
I have just a couple questions.
Sure.
So for the elementary school, I know you said that they're doing like a long-term research project to look at how it's going. But are there metrics that we look at just for each summer? So like a pre-test and a post-test. How were those numbers? How did that go?
I will put that together.
Okay.
Actually, Amy Oates was just sharing that with us today. They do what's called an Ames web assessment, pre and post.
Yeah.
So we'll have that data. But also what I'm interested in on either side of that, as far as iReady, how they left in May, you got that pre and post in between, and then how did they return? So we are in the midst of putting all that together right now.
And then the cost for elementary, I know that one part of it said that the transportation budget was used for like the bus transportation, but how was the rest of it?
Where did that go?
Right there.
So your question?
Yeah, the funding source, because I can see that the transportation came out of the transportation budget, but what about the other components?
Yes, Ms. Tracy, could you help me with that?
That total is both of them combined, but everything besides the transportation comes out of the summer school budget. So there is a general fund for summer school, but the high school and middle school use their
ESS. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just want to give some feedback. I actually had a parent reach out to me that their child participated in summer school, and they noticed a huge turn from when they came back to school. So just as feedback from at least one student, one family, they really did appreciate the resource that they had over the summer. So I wanted to share that.
It's great to hear. And like I said, I was pleasantly surprised when because they had some concerns about their attendance and how many, because there were more than that invited than actually attended. But when I looked at the overall population that we have, and I'm like, we're over 10%. That's pretty fantastic to serve that many in a summer program. And the goal also is not, obviously we want to make up academic, we want to make academic gains and fill in those gaps, but there's so much more to that. As you can tell, it's just social connection. It's feeding them. There's so much more to that. And just keeping them off devices for a little while in the summer. Other questions on that?
Ryan, I'll say those 98 credits that were covered, they really show up when we look at our graduation rate. And I think we'll be very impressed with our graduation rate when we see it for last year.
Absolutely.
So that plays a huge role.
Absolutely. Last thing I'll close with is equity. September will be a big step forward in terms of our teaming for that. Our 4 main goals at the district level, and you've heard me say this a lot over the past 2 years, we've been building capacity at the school level, building capacity. So not only do we have those leads at each of the schools, but also team structures to go with it. We very much emphasize team structuring to get things done. It takes a team of folks. So now that we've built that capacity, the first goal is empower school-based teams to develop and implement DEIB practices. We also, at both a district level and school level, participate in training and or conferences to support new learning related to DEIB. So we did carve out an existing budget to put some money over towards DEIB. We are done with our contractual obligations we've had with Dr. Banks over the past several years. So that's been a gradual release, and now we're off to do our own. So we want to participate in some other types of training and conferences. We also want to revisit baseline data from the original 2019 cultural audit we had that really began all this to, one, determine the growth that we've made since that time, and two, just what continued needs still exist. And then finally, identify and define how multi-tiered systems of supports, you've heard me say MTSS many times, how that ensures equity in our schools. And summer school is an example of that. How do we go above and beyond? Fare is not always equal, so what do we provide to students in need to truly define equity? And so that'll be a part of it as well. Like I said, September's a big step forward. I took inventory of those who want to return to the district level team, inventory of those who will again serve as leads, have some transition there, some turnover, but we'll be sure to solicit to get some more folks on those teams. Any questions on that?
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the smaller teams now at each of the schools, is there an opportunity for members of the community to become involved if it's an area that, you know, maybe they have some expertise in, or faith leaders, you know, community groups? Is there an opportunity for them to become involved and share their...
Sure. We do have a partnership getting ready to start at the middle school, so that's one example with the NAACP. But if there were any, you know, if you have any contacts or anybody reaching out to you, you can steer them my way, and then I'll point them to the appropriate school. All right.
Anything
Thank
else
you
for
very
Mr. Escher? Thank you. No.
All right. Thank you.
Do we have any? Okay, we have no public comment tonight, so we'll move over to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Brickler and a second by Ms. Glass. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Moving on to the regular agenda, can I have a motion to accept notification of personnel matters?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. McCowan.
Second.
Second by Ms. Glass, I think. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to accept notification of payment of bills?
So moved.
That's a motion by Ms. Glass
Second.
and a second by Mr. Brickler. Any discussion?
I did have something. Last month, I had asked that I receive a copy, and any other board members that might be interested to receive a copy of the fiscal year ended in June 30th, and so I was interested in seeing a total kind of year ending for each of our vendors throughout the year, and I didn't receive that, so I was just going to ask again for that tonight.
My apologies. I have that in my email. I'll forward it to you after the meeting. I did get that and forgot to send it on, but I do have that. So
That's okay. I think we emailed about a couple different things, and I neglected to follow up on that too.
And I
so-
apologize as well.
yeah,
We should have.
my fault. I do have it though. I can send it. Yeah, I will send. Yeah.
Thank you.
Other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-2. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the July regular and special called board meetings?
So moved.
Ooh, that was close. I'm going to call Ms. McCowan and a second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Can I have a motion to approve the second reading of the paternal leave and other leaves of absence policy?
So moved.
That's a motion by Mr. Brickler,
Second.
a second by Ms. Glass. Any discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd
Any-
just like to
oh,
thank you guys very quickly, because this is a huge win for our staff. So thank you.
Thank you. I think that was a 5-0. Okay, that's okay. And we'll need a motion to approve FY25 tax rates.
I make a motion that we approve the compensating tax rate for FY25 with a compensating rate for real property of 64.8 cents per $100 of assessed value, and 65.1 for personal per $100 of assessed value.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay, we'll have discussion on that.
Well, basically, when I'm looking at just the raw data, it's clear that if we adopt this compensating rate, we would not lose any tax income because the assessments have increased so greatly. And in doing this, we would be able to lower the current rate of 70.5 down to 64.8 for real and 65.1 for personal. So that would give our taxpayers a break of about 5.8 cents for real property. I think that it's the right thing to do for our taxpayers, and I think that this would still generate almost, it looks like $381,850. I think I have some issues with the collection, the parentheses, some issues with the SEEK implications and the decrease in SINK, but just leaving that all aside to be able to lower our rate for our taxpayers by 5.8 cents when the property assessments are going up, so the bills are going up, but still maintain the revenue and actually generate more revenue of about $381,850 according to this, is just the right thing to do for our taxpayers.
Well, I think that we can't talk about that rate without talking about the SEEK adjustments that are going to happen, because while it may in fact generate $380,000 more, those assessments also severely impact our SEEK, which nets out to a net reduction of almost $700,000, as Mr. Smith showed us. Mr. Smith, would you bring up the tax rate analysis that we have? And if you would walk us through that compensating rate, please.
Okay. So on the document you have before you the very top table talks about the assessments. As Ms. Springate mentioned, our assessment have grown approximately $336 million, 9.28% increase. If you look at the tax reports that KDE sent us, our real property assessments actually went up over 16%. There's some offsets there with motor vehicle taxes or motor vehicle assessments and some other property that actually went down. But real property went up over 16%. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk about a program that KDE has set forth. They actually set it up last year to help districts that are having I guess assessment increases that are higher than typical, because the assessment growth directly impacts your SEEK funding that you get from the state. And that's intentional on the state's behalf to leverage local school districts to use their taxing ability to increase their revenue. But nonetheless, that top table does show the property assessment growth that Woodford County had from last tax year to this tax year, so $336 million in growth. The next table just illustrates the tax rates. The current rate, as was mentioned, is 70.5 cents for both real estate and personal property. The effect on $100,000 worth of property is $705. The compensating rate per KDE's tax documentation, those rates, it's a decrease down to 64.8 for real and 65.1 for personal. Those are the effects on $100,000 worth of property for that. And then the 4% growth rate would be 67.3% for real property and 67.6 cents for personal property. And those are the effects on $100,000 worth of property there. I just starred these rates do include a 1/10 of a cent for exonerations from the previous year that we're allowed to add to that. The tax revenue in the third column, third table below that, So here's where I show the tax revenue and the SEEK implication. Because our assessments grew by $336 million.
Sorry, could you move the
Oh,
so we could see that bottom?
There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, so the first line, so our collection rate was 98.28% approximately last year. And so I use that number to calculate how much revenue we're going to get with the new tax rates that they give us based on the assessments. So the compensating rate would yield $381,850 of new revenue. But because the assessments go up, there's a line on the SEEK formula that directly takes out 30% of your tax assessments for local effort. And so our SEEK would go down $1,010,236. And so the net of that would yield a decrease revenue of $628,385 to the district. The 4% growth rate would yield $1,253,025, and by the time you net out the SEEK reduction, we'd yield about $242,789. So, KDE has recognized that this is causing difficulty for school districts such as Woodford that is having pretty significant assessment growth. And so Mr. Atkins and I reached out to KDE to see how we're qualifying. We did not qualify last year. I think you had to exceed 14.4% for property. We did not exceed that. We were close, but we didn't exceed that. For FY25, we're, like I said, over 16% for the real property. And I think 14.4 was what we had to exceed. So KDE has indicated that we may, with the caveat, if funds are available. So who knows, at the end of FY25, we may get a reimbursement of $480,000 for those assessment growth. So hopefully we'll get it back, but it's not positive. So you can take that into account or not. It's $480,000 if we get it.
If I could interrupt 1 second, I'm sorry. If we could also, when you talk about that 4% growth rate, if you look, the 4% growth rate is also a tax decrease, and I wanted to make sure that we mention that. It's still over a 3-cent decrease on real property and almost a 3-cent decrease on personal property.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. 3.2 cents if I'm doing my math right, and
Yep.
2.9 on the personal property. So yes, both rates are a decrease from the current rate of 70.5 cents. And then the motor vehicle rate's 50.9. That's what it's been for several years. Watercraft, aircraft. I did leave aircraft off of this document. My apologies. But motor vehicle, watercraft, and aircraft are 50.9 and have been for several years. And then the gross utility tax of 3% would be the rates as proposed by KDE on the tax documents. So one thing I just wanted to refer to, there were some comments earlier. Josh, if you don't mind, put my notes up that I provided to you before the meeting. And these are just my notes that I gave to Josh before the meeting, and just told him that I'm going to reference these and he can stick them up on the monitors for everybody to look at. But I did want to kind of walk back through the financial picture for the past year. We discussed this last year. We discussed it last September at the budget meeting. I've discussed it this May at the budget meetings. And it just kind of rehashes. I'm sorry, I'll let him get that pulled up there.
Too much. There we go.
So there we go. So just to kind of go back in time just a little bit. So when we did the initial budget last year for FY24, this would have been the May timeframe. The SEEK statements that I had from KDE, based on what we thought the assessments were going to be at the time, were going to yield us SEEK revenue of $10,696,294. At the time, the ending, it wasn't exactly at the time, but at the end of FY23 last year, we had an ending balance. of $10,576,596, of which I think we all acknowledge was too high, right? That is too much money for Woodford to be carrying from year to year. That's not being spent. And so we knew that we had to spend that down. So this was also around the same time that the district approved, I believe it was a 5% district-wide raise, and then we gave the classified staff $1 on the hour, certified were 5%. We gave some other benefits along that time that we estimated to cost the district somewhere around $2 million of recurring costs, okay? You know, we not knowing what the tax situation, I don't ever really adjust the tax revenue in May when I do the tentative budgets, but kind of assuming that we typically do something to generate some additional tax revenue. I knew that $2 million probably wasn't going to be a sheer loss in total, knowing that we might do something with the tax rates, but also knew that we had $10,576,000 of beginning balance that we had to spend down. That doesn't go down by any other way other than spending more than you take in, right? You can't do any, there are no other levers for us to pull to be able to reduce that ending balance other than spend more than you take in. So we anticipated that those raises were going to exceed our new tax revenue, thereby reducing that beginning balance. All right. I just kind of thought I thought based on where we're at, it'd be somewhere around $1 million roughly. So reducing $10.5 million beginning balance $1 million at a time is much more manageable than what turned out later in the fall when we got our actual SEEK statement and we got the tax statements and all the assessment growth that we have. And so I just want to reiterate the point that there is no mechanism that exists for us to understand what the assessment growth is going to be for a county's property in May until we get the tax statements 10 days after I release the AFR. That's when I get those statements. The way the PVA does a third of the county every year, they don't really, and understandably so, I don't get that information early. I have no way. I've asked this question to a broad spectrum of experienced finance officers with the state of Kentucky, and it's like, how are we supposed to guess with any real accuracy when these assessments are growing with no way to really put a target on them? And the response I get from experienced finance officers is, well, you have to guess as close as you can. And so I'll be the first one to stand here and say that's probably not a great mechanism for us and the school districts to understand what our revenues are going to be, but that's what we got, right? So there's no way in May for us to understand. I put a huge number, for example, for the assessment growth this year, knowing what we went through last year, put a huge number of increase on it for an estimate this spring, still missed it by several $100,000. So that's always going to be difficult. Regardless of what anyone else says, that's always going to be difficult. So fast forward to the fall last year, we get our SEEK. The decrease due to the increased assessments reduced our SEEK down to $9,579,000. So, and there's been questions about, well, our actual SEEK didn't go down that much. Completely agree. That's not the point. The point is we budgeted $10,500,000 in revenue from SEEK in May when we approved those raises. That was how much revenue I thought we were going to get from SEEK. We wound up getting $9.5 million. That is a $1 million approximate net decrease. We just added $2 million of expenditures recurring through salary. So that changes from me thinking and planning that we're going to eat that beginning balance excess $1 million per year to eating it $3 million per year, essentially, without any other variables. So, you know, in the table below illustrates that. So the FY24 ending balances, I'll just mention this before I stop. The contingency for FY24 was budgeted to be $6 million. Our ending balance is going to be around $7.6 million. So we did not overspend based on our budget. We still had $1.6 million in our budget that was left on the table that wasn't spent down based on the budget that was approved. So, I just want to make sure everyone understands that all these numbers were in the budget that was approved for FY24 last year in September. So the table just kind of reiterates just really simple math. And listen, there's 100 variables that go into this. I'm just giving you the 40,000 foot view and trying to show you how the $3 million of expense over revenue came about for last year, recognizing that that's a big number, recognizing that we have to take measures to start fixing that. There will be some budget cuts this year for discretionary purposes that we have controls over. But I think it's small in comparison. When we look at raises, that's the recurring cost. That's the one that we can't, we don't have as many levers to pull to reduce the salary costs from year to year. They are what they are. And so we have levers to pull back on some of the discretionary costs, but I would tell you we can't cut $3 million out of the discretionary, or there are going to be a whole lot of unhappy people about a lot of unhappy things. And so I don't take any of this lightly. We're going to work, we're going to fix it, but it's going to take a couple of years to get everything back the way that it needs to be. And it's this SEEK. I mean, I don't know how to fight that any differently. Like we're kind of running into a losing battle with that SEEK decrease that we're having to suffer through because of our assessment growth. And assessment growth should be a positive thing because that shows good economic indicators for the district and the county. And so, but unfortunately, it's causing us some difficulty from a revenue standpoint because it's eating into these tax dollars that we're getting. So with that, that's my presentation. And so I hope all that made sense. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I'm just very appreciative of the explanation and going into the detail there. I know we've talked about this, and you brought this up a lot, and it wasn't a big surprise that we've talked about the $2 million for salary increases, which we need to do, right? We were in a spot where we needed to focus on retention and recruiting. We needed to take care of our staff so that they could take care of our students. We all are taxpayers ourselves, but I think as a board, prioritizing the students and the staff and how we can take care and invest in the community through that is an important thing to keep in mind. We got hit with some unexpected costs. We got hit with some things that weren't part of the initial budget because we didn't know about it. And so I think we do have to chip away at getting back to where we need to be. The 4% revenue increase is a way to do that. And I think that the compensating rate, while it might be nice to lower our taxes a little bit more, the fact that the 4% revenue increase still lowers the taxes, but also helps us to increase our revenue a little bit to chip away at what we've been experiencing with the SEEK. Reducing, to me, it just makes sense to go that route.
And I think we've done that in the past when we've taken the 4% increase that has resulted in a tax decrease. I think maybe 2 years ago we did that. But the equalizing factor in all of this, I think, is that point where the SEEK becomes a negative for us. And our growth rates were so good that it just really screwed up that SEEK calculation. And whether or not that's the way it's intended to be, I guess it doesn't really matter, but the math is what happened here. And I think that, for us to go into the year with $200,000 estimated net increase in income, taking the 4%, which is a tax reduction, is probably the best case scenario for us right now. I don't see where taking an additional $700,000 decrease in revenue would make any sense for us at this point, mathematically.
Mr. Smith, do you have to, when you mentioned that there would be a potential to have get the extra funds from KDE if there's left at the end of the year because our assessments have continued to grow, I'm assuming, but asking, you have to take the 4% to qualify for that, correct?
That's correct. I appreciate you bringing that up because I failed to mention that. You do have to take the 4% to be able to qualify that.
Okay, thank you.
I think just to share where I'm at with this, and I think everybody knows, I mean, I've not made any kind of a secret that I don't feel like that we're doing a service to the public or to ourselves or to anybody by not discussing our finances every month. That's not a secret. And some of the things that I struggle with are, I know Mr. Smith said that they're going to be taking a deep dive at expenses and cutting back on discretionary things. But that's a lot of what I've seen based on my own research, and we don't have access to that unless we ask for it. It's not something that is readily available and provided to us, and so it's not until you think about something and start to do your own research that you can see kind of a lot of excessive spending, in my opinion. And so I think that when we have teachers that are creating Amazon lists to help get supplies, we have teacher mentors that, you know, I don't know if they get stipends or not. You know, we have our schools and our buildings operating in a very strict budget. I don't even know what our budget is for the school board, for central office. All of that's just lumped into, I don't even know what the budget is for each of the schools. But those are things that would be nice to know, and that would be good to talk about before we're doing any kind of budgeting, because it could be way out of whack and we have no idea. So that's where I struggle with this, is not being willing to talk openly about how we're spending tax dollars, but taking the maximum rate. And I understand the maximum rate is a decrease. It's not an increase in taxes. But I think we have to be more open with how we're spending people's money, because it's not clear, and that Munis report is not clear. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Well, and I do have a couple things. I do want to talk about like the slides and the estimates and that sort of thing. But first, I would just say that as a board, we were never told we were going to end the year with a $3 million deficit, about a $3 million deficit in spending over our expenses. And when I brought that up last meeting, it seemed like some members of the board were shocked and didn't believe that was the case and didn't think that was what had happened or what was going to happen. And I feel like the public is probably in the same boat, because when you look at the 70 or 80 page reports, you can't tell exactly where the year is going to end when you're just looking at the end numbers until the fiscal year actually ends, because we have so many things that kind of come out at the last minute or come out in period 13. And so I was thinking, as I was watching along, at a certain point I could kind of tell that our expenses were more than they were from the year before. But all that's been removed from the Munis reports. There used to be a column that showed last August, and you could look at this August, last November, and you could look at this November. All that is gone from the reports. So you have to pull up the reports from last year to even compare how you are year to date versus last year. So there's a lot more to it than just attaching that document and thinking that people can read it and understand it, because at the point at the last meeting, I really think some people on the board were shocked that we ended with a $3.9 million increase in expenses over
I think, again, we did not end up with an increase in expenses, and I think that's where the comments come from. There was no increase in expenses over what we expected. There was a decrease in revenue. They are two completely different things. We did not, no matter how many times you say we overspent by $3 million, we did not. We pulled in $2 million less in revenue than what was budgeted for. Those are two completely different statements, and that is what was mentioned last month.
I'm sorry that I'm not being clear. Let me be clear. We began the fiscal year with 10.5. Can you push the slide down, please? With $10.5 million beginning balance. We are ending this year with a balance of, was it 6.7, Mr.
No,
Smith?
7.5.
7.5. So if you pull it down, you can see. So
Nobody's
we have
arguing that.
decreased the amount of money that we had by $3 million. It's gone.
Correct.
And so what I would like to say is that we did not experience $1 million reduction in SEEK. When you look at the actual SEEK forecast that we were given in July, September, whenever the actual tax numbers came in, that document, if you look at Mr. Smith's, can you pull it up just a hair so we can see just a little bit higher? Right there. So by September 23rd, we were told that it would be around 9.5. We actually got a check from KDE for SEEK of 9.545.
Right.
So
But if you scroll up a little
again, if you
more,
say we thought we were going to make $50,000 this year, but we only made 47 last year. We didn't make 50. Say we made 45 last year. We thought we were going to make 50. We were going to get a $5 million or $5,000 raise. But then at the end of the year, you only get 47 of a raise. You didn't lose $3,000. That's not how it works. So you have an estimate that might be off, but when you look at what the SEEK checks they are cutting to us, they've actually increased, Ms. McHale. So from the fiscal year to this fiscal year, they've actually increased. And for next fiscal year, we'll actually get a little bit more in SEEK. Now, there is the equalization, and I do understand that, but I don't think you can say we lost $1 million because we thought we were going to get more money than we actually got. I don't think that's how you budget. You budget based on your actual numbers.
You budget based on what you know at the time.
Correct.
which
And
is
at the
what
time, we
happened.
had an accurate number, 9.5.
$10.7 million.
In September, when we did our budget and adopted our budget, we had a document from KDE
What was built into
for
the
September
budget, Mr.
7th.
Smith?
Yeah, the problem is we approved $2 million worth of raises in May,
Correct.
thinking the number was going to be 10.696 million. That's the conundrum. What happened in September from a budgeting standpoint is irrelevant. We'd already approved $2 million worth of raises in May based on SEEK
Based on the
revenue of
10.5,
$10
right.
million 6.
Exactly.
And we spent the
Exactly.
$2 million, but that didn't cause us to increase
But
our
it-
expenses.
But it, our,
so I
our
think
expenses, again, you keep saying our expenses increased. The expenses did not increase.
the expenses absolutely
They
increased.
did
Mr.
not
Smith, can you
increase over
clear that
budget.
up? Our expenses this past fiscal year increased over the
Well,
previous fiscal year by
certainly-
about how much, Mr. Smith? Can you just answer
Certainly
that?
they did by the raises. They were not over budgeted. It was not, we did not spend more than what we budgeted.
We absolutely did.
Absolutely
And you
did
can
not.
look at the balance sheets
Okay,
to
we're
see
not going
that.
to continue to argue about this. The math comes down to, everybody agrees, $7.5 million in a contingency. You will say till you're blue in the face it's because it's over expenses. And you'll continue to say that no matter what anybody shows you. It is not due to over expenses, it's due to getting less revenue than what we thought at the time that we were approving the raises. So we're not going to solve this.
Well-
you will continue to say your version of it. We will
The
continue
version
to
is
look
the
at
bottom
math.
line in the bank
No,
account. It's
but
the dollar
no,
check amount that we
it's-
have in the
it's
bank.
not when
But I
you're-
would just
it's
say,
not when you are
after you
telling
finish, I would
people
like to
that we
speak.
are overspending and being frivolous, which we are not.
and I disagree. We are absolutely overspending and being frivolous. And Mr. Smith himself just said they were going to be looking at ways to make cuts and look at the budget and make sure that things are balanced because they currently are not. So when you lose from your beginning balance, you go from 10.5 million down to 7 whatever million, that's something to be concerned about because after just a couple years, you got 0 in your saving or your contingency, and that's concerning. And the other thing that's concerning, and I think Mr. Smith, can you just answer, are our expenses from last fiscal year, the previous fiscal year to last fiscal year that just ended on July 30th, or are expenses up?
So, yes, but expenses always go
Correct.
up year over year.
They were not over
Thank you.
budget.
And
we-
Mr. Smith, when you look at what we
Let him
budgeted,
finish. You asked him a question, and you're not letting
Yeah.
him finish his answer.
oh, please finish.
So the expenses were higher in FY24 than they were in FY23, but they should have been higher. We gave $2 million worth of raises in FY24 that we didn't have in FY23. So,
And they were budgeted that way, correct?
correct.
And
That's
what-
And
that's
again-
we did not overspend our budget based on
Correct.
budget. We
And it-
had budget, so let me finish and then hopefully this will help. The contingency, in a perfect world, your contingency budget is what your ending balance, you expect your ending balance to be, to some degree, right, in a perfect world. So we budgeted $6 million for our contingency in FY24. if we would have spent our budget down exactly as the budget was laid out, our ending balance would have been $6 million. We did not do that. We had 7.6 million, which is going to be our beginning balance in FY25 approximately. So that's a $1.6 million. Now, I do want to clarify the expenses over the revenue is about a $3 million difference. But the expenses are due to, because of the raises I'm referring to and the loss of that $1 million in revenue. That's what creates the budget imbalance. So,
And again, you're saying a loss of revenue for money that we never had.
But-
KDE said in September, this is what you should get with SEEK, and then we got something that was a little different, but it wasn't $1 million different. And that's the question that I have for this document that you gave us tonight too, was basically just saying that there's $1 million reduction. So if you look at the forecast, that the latest forecast of SEEK, and you look at what we got from SEEK last fiscal year, are you saying that's $1 million difference, or are you saying it's $1 million difference from what I thought we might get but we're not going to get, of money that's not real money? It's just, I thought we might get this, we didn't really get this. So I just would love to see our information based on actual numbers, not on estimates from 3 or 4 months
So should we
ago.
not have given the raises once we found out that the SEEK was not going to be what we thought it was when we approved the $2 million in raises? Should we just not have given those raises? Because that would have been literally the only way to avoid this. And you continue to
I don't
say
think
that
that's
it's
true, because when
It
we
is
talked about the
true. No, it
raises,
is-
I asked Mr. Smith,
It is
this, can we
100%
do this
true.
raise based on leaving the taxes flat? Because that was the proposal in the document that we were given from him. And so
In
he
the spring,
said,
yes.
at that time, if we left it flat, which is not doing the increase 4%, that we should be able to do that. And I think we thought that we could. It didn't end up being the case. But I do think that you have to have estimates that are based on actuals. You have to have estimates that are good estimates as far as income
are
and
estimates.
expenses, but they can't be off by millions, Miss McHale.
Well,
And then you can't come and have a board who's supposed to be providing the accountability and following policy about when certain
if we
budgets go over
understood
and
how
have
the
zero
SEEK
discussion
works,
about that.
I don't think
Zero
anybody
discussion.
expected the assessments to be to the point that they were, that actually reduced, and this is not an uncommon phenomenon with the SEEK. We've talked about this phenomenon with SEEK for years, that it actually can hurt you in a growth period. And that is what's happened here. It's hurt us in a growth period.
And
So
again-
we had estimated that we would be reducing this contingency over the course of several years.
Never had a discussion
4 or
about
5
that.
years.
We never had a
And
discussion about that. This is the
now
first
we
I've heard of it
cannot,
tonight.
because it all happened, it happened in 1 year. So it happened steeper than what it should have happened. Nobody overspent the budget. Yes, they were more. Nobody overspent the budget. But what did happen was we received in less revenue than we thought we were going to get at the time we were approving those expenses.
I understand
That's
what
the
you're
long
saying.
and the short of it.
I
That's it.
completely understand
That's
what
it.
you're saying, but I disagree. And what I disagree about is when you look at the check KDE cut us and the check that KDE said they were going to cut us for SEEK in September, those numbers are very similar.
Yes,
Number
in
one. Number
September.
two, I'm sorry, number two, if I could just finish. Number two, just because you estimate that you're going to get some income and you don't get it, that doesn't mean you've lost income. There has been no loss of revenue whatsoever because your estimate was off. Number three, I would say that our SEEK dollars, when you look at what the actuals are that come in and what they're actually cutting us a check, are very similar. And number four, if we reviewed our monthly budget, our monthly reports and financials, you would be able to see that at the what we've budgeted and what the actuals are over what we've budgeted in several categories, which requires the board to do an adjustment and to vote and to follow some policies that are required about budgeting, which we do not do. So you can just look at those numbers and see on period 12 the actuals that came in and what was budgeted, and anything that's more than that, to me, is going over the budget.
Does anyone we're not going to just continue to say the same thing over and over between the two of us. Does anybody else have anything new, additional, different to add to this discussion right now? Okay, then we are moving on with a vote. The vote is to use the compensating rate of 64.8 cents. Can we go back to that other one just so I can say it correctly? Oh, 64.7 cents. I need
hold
the
on.
actual ones.
I have it, Ms.
the-
McHale. The vote is for the compensating rate of 64.8 cents for real
For real.
property per 100 assessed value and 65.1 for personal
For
per
personal.
100 of assessed value, generating 381,850 new dollars.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. The motion fails 3-2. Can we have another motion for taxes, please?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to approve 2024-2025 tax levy for Woodford County Public Schools as follows. Tax levy for the general fund of 67.3 cents on real property and real estate, 67.6 cents on personal tangible property, a motor vehicle tax rate of 50.9 cents, watercraft rate of 50.9 cents, and aircraft rate of 50.9 cents, a 3% gross utility tax rate.
Okay, that's a motion by Ms. Glass.
Second.
A second by Mr. Brickler. Is there any additional or new discussion that was not mentioned in the last discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion passes 3-2.
I did have a couple of discussion items, Ms. McHale.
Can we add discussion items
It's on
during
the
the
agenda.
meeting? I know, but there's nothing listed under discussion. Should we have added those under the proposed amendments to agenda?
Yeah, I think you would have added those at the
Yeah.
time of the proposed amendments, or you would have requested ahead of the meeting for them to be put on the agenda if you
Yeah.
wanted discussion items.
So there's nothing under discussion items.
You wanted to discuss amendment two.
No, that's gonna be for the September meeting.
For the September
That's
meeting.
gonna be the September
Did you
meeting.
tell me to remind
No,
you
that,
at the end of
just,
this meeting?
that's just for me to talk to you.
Okay, then none.
Okay. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Glass.
Second.
A second by Mr. Brickler. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes 5-0. Thank you all. Have a good night.